What's up guys, Brian here with Pittsburgh Weiss Schwartz, and today I'm going to share one of my Mob Psycho 100 lists that's been doing extremely well for me at our Pittsburgh locals in recent weeks. However, as a disclaimer, I wouldn't consider taking this deck to any sort of high-level competitive singles event due to the fact that it crumbles against Data Live. But against almost anything else, the deck seems really strong, especially if your opponent doesn't have an out to this deck strategy. It can be particularly oppressive. So jumping into it here, we put the deck list at the start of every video, just in case that's what you're here for. Additionally, the Encore decks link will be in the description. But starting with the level zeros here, the first level zero in this deck is this red Megumu. He mills cards on play, he fills your waiting room and gets power. The putting cards into waiting room is relevant to this deck due to the fact that it is playing the standby trigger. And the fact that he gets big is also relevant since Mob Psycho does not have a lot of level zeros that hit over your opponent's stuff at level 0. The second card here we have is the Ricky, and it is a Ricky. It is the normal on-play pay 1 clock top, search for a level 1 or lower character in your deck, allows you to set up for your level 1, and it also has the second effect. If you have experience 2 or higher, you can give a character 2k power until the end of your turn. This is also relevant for our deck, since in most cases, at most levels, at least one of our characters will be looking for a reverse. We will be looking to win board. Up next, we've got the Brainstorm. Every deck plays it. Good card, rest 1 salvage Brainstorm. Also has start of your climax step, give 500 power to one of your characters until end of turn. Just like the Ritsu Riki, little bit of extra power, helping you win lanes, always relevant. And the first effect, arguably one of the most relevant, gives all of your characters with Reigen in name, like this drop search I'm going to talk about here in a second, Esper trait, and that will become relevant shortly here when I talk about the 2-1 mob assist, which we're running in this deck. So the Reigen drop search itself, it's a drop search, pay 1, ditch 1 on play. Search your deck for a Esper Spirit or Master character. Can't grab the Climax swap, which we're running in this deck, because it is First Love trait. It doesn't have any of the common traits, which is unfortunate, but that is what Bushiroad said so we will have to deal with it. The drop search also has on play blink one of your opponent's characters, send it to memory, bring it back. This removes any sort of cross-turn effect that your opponent's character might have had, like neg soul to the character across from it, any sort of cross-turn power that it's holding, any markers that the character had. So this card serves a multitude of uses and has been extremely useful for me in a lot of matchups. The next card we've got here is the Reigen stock swap. This card doesn't see play as often, but it is still relevant to have in the deck just as a threat to your opponent. If they see this, they will be less inclined to build as much stock as they would have otherwise, compressing them a little bit less. If they do decide to overextend, you do have this. You can pay 3, send their stock to waiting room, and hopefully put some climaxes from the top of their deck back into their stock. The secondary effect on this card is arguably even more niche. It removes a trait from one of your opponent's characters until the end of turn on play. And I have not found many uses for this effect, aside from reducing the power of an opponent's character that gets power for each traded character on the board. But keep an eye out. This effect is useful in extremely niche cases and can potentially afford you a swing turn if played correctly. The next card that we've got here, Petite Mob. Now this card I've found especially useful in this deck, particularly if you're going second. It allows you to nuke your opponent's opening play to the bottom of your opponent's deck, while also giving the other character that you played, since you're going second, an additional power boost, allowing it to ideally live cross turn at level 0. This works particularly well with the Megumu level 0, since he is 3k base. The mob allows him to sit at 4,500, so provided he doesn't get bombed or something, the Megumu will live in most cases when this card is on the board with it. The last card we're playing in this deck is the Climax Swap, and it is vital to this deck's ability to function, since hitting the correct climaxes on curve allows the deck to work the way it's supposed to. Unfortunately, you can't grab it off Drop Search, but you can grab it off of a number of other sources. You can grab it off the Ricky, you can grab it off the Salvage Brainstorm since it doesn't grab off trait, or you can just draw into it. So you still do have a number of ways to get into this card if you need it. It's just unfortunate that some of your methods of grabbing cards do not. This card also has a cool secondary effect. If its attack is canceled, it can go to stock, build you a little bit of extra stock. Pretty handy. Moving on to the level 1s. The Stalker here is the other card in the deck that we need experience for, in addition to the Ricky. It sits at 5,500 cross turn and gets you an extra stock when it scores a reverse, provided you've met all the conditions. You need the explosion counter event in memory, and you need a level 2 or higher card in your level. But this card is the only playable character at level 1 that we're playing, so I guess it's essentially our level 1 combo, and it's what you should be setting up for most of the time going into level 1. The other major card that we're playing at level 1 is the 1/1 Explosion Counter event, which is necessary to run with the Stalker since it provides it with the ability to do the blind stock effect. The Explosion Counter also is a counter event, which allows you to mill your deck during your opponent's turn if you're in a particularly bad deck state. And the card also goes to memory, which allows for a little bit of extra compression in future decks. One additional use of the card is we're going to talk about the 2/1 mob back row assist here, whose goal is to build as many markers as possible as quickly as possible. This card can also be put underneath that mob as an additional marker to try to get to the 4 you need for the Reigen combo. The last card we have at level 1 is this 1/1 backup. It's a backup, it protects your field. In this case, you want to protect the Stalker at level 1 with it. With the 2,500 power from this backup, it puts the Stalker from 5,500 up to 8k, which prevents it from being hit over by 7,500 power standby targets and other things of that nature. Puts it at a pretty decent power. And also, if the Stalker scores a reverse, it refunds the stock when the Stalker wins lane. If you would rather plus on stock, there is a 2k costless counter in the set as well. It only puts the mob up to 7,500, but if you do win lane with it, you plus yourself a stock. So that is completely up to the player's preference. On to level 2. The 2/1 Mob Assist, one of the key cards of the deck, and is one of the key components of the deck's main game plan. The deck's primary game plan is to get this mob on board at level 1 as soon as possible with the standby climax. It combos with the Reigen finisher, which the deck also plays. But when you standby it out at level 1, it does literally nothing except for start to suck up cards as markers when they get reversed. It only grabs blue and Esper characters, which is important to note since Reigen himself is not innately an Esper character, but your Brainstorm makes him one. The Megamoo, level 0, is also an Esper character. He's Esper Claw trait. So the mob here can grab almost everything in most cases except for the Climax Swap, again, because it is First Love trait. This card also gives 2k frontal power to your level 3s. We play a number of early plays in addition to standby in this deck, so those will sit pretty large. However, this card is also the reason that the deck folds to Data Live. If this card gets blinked and it loses all its markers, or it gets winded back to hand, level downed, or anything like that that removes it from the field, you cry a little bit because you spent most of your energy at level 1 trying to get as many markers as possible under this, and it all fell apart underneath you. But if that doesn't happen, you are in a pretty good spot. Going to level 2, I run one of this 2/2 Matsuo, Gets big against level 3s, has hand-on core, and is a 2-soul attacker. Most of the time, he'll go to level as your red fix and your level 2 experience condition. However, he is helpful to have around as an incidental level 2 standby target that also has hand-on core. He's a 2-soul beater, can swing for 2 every turn, keep on-coring him. The backup here, the 2/1, is another card to protect your field at level 2 onward. He allows you to memory kick your opponent's character when the character that you back up reverses its battle opponent. This is particularly relevant against annoying sticky things that are in the meta these days, like the Yun early play and the Shizu early play from Konosuba and Slime that both have hand-on core. You can just kick those to memory and not have to worry about dealing with them. At level 3, we're playing 4 of this show early play. This is the deck's healing early play. And a lot of the time, if Matsuo isn't your red level condition, this card will be sent to level. Just level 1 for experience and color as early as possible. You need the standby at level 1 to slam for the 2/1 mob anyway, so get that red and that experience as quickly as possible. This card usually sits at 12k with the mob back row. However, its power is variable based on the number of characters in your opponent's back row. But a lot of the time they aren't pushing those cards forward. And sometimes this card generates you even more stock. If it reverses a level 2 or higher character, you can get an additional stock, which is relevant because this deck guzzles stock. Everything costs stock. Characters cost stock to play, or most of your level 0s cost stock to do their thing when they come into play. The last piece of the puzzle here is the Reigen level 3 combo. He's the keystone of the deck. You stand by this card in at level 2 if possible. With the mob back row, he sits at 14/5 untargetable. So your opponent can't anti-change him with a targeted anti-change counter. They can't money counter him. They can't wind him. They can't do anything. But they can bully the 2/1 mob back row, and that is the chink in this deck's proverbial armor. If the mob climax combo goes off with 4 markers, this card sits at 17k, great performance untargetable, forcing all of your opponent's characters to front attack it, which is great because its second effect reads, when this card is frontal attacked, you can look at the top card of your deck and either put it back or put it into your waiting room. So he allows you to mill through your deck when he's frontal attacked, searching for cancels, and allows you to cancel much more consistently than you would otherwise. So, an overview of the deck's playstyle. You play a normal level 0 game, trying to set up 1 or 2 stalker mobs for level 1, while also death gripping any standbys that you run into along the way. You slam standby the moment you hit level 1 to start building markers on the 2/1 mob support. And on your first turn at level 2, or if you incidentally trigger any standbys on turns following, you start flooding the board with as many Reigen level 3s as possible. And if your mob has 4 markers, you start searching for a choice to set up that great performance. All the while, you want to keep yourself healed at level 2, try to stay at level 2 as long as possible with the heals from show, and choke out your opponents with Reigen and backups that they can't hit over. But in conclusion, like I said at the beginning of the video, I wouldn't recommend pulling this deck out at a high stakes event, since the concentration of data live is probably pretty high these days. And the only other thing to watch out for is whether or not your opponent's deck is playing an Adachi, that being a 1/1 bomb for removing early played characters, since it can completely screw over the Reigen level 3 setup. In those cases, you can wait a turn, try to bait it out with a show, or just start smacking them with Matsuo at level 2. Either way, just be cautious of that, because that is a thing that can ruin your game plan. But anyway, thanks for watching. This last slide is the links we put at the end of all of our videos. The Discords are the best and probably most active place to discuss the game with other players. All of us in Pittsburgh Weiss Schwartz are on there. And the Facebook pages are buy-sell trade groups. You can usually find any sort of card that you're looking for by asking the people who are on there. And with that, we've got some more deck techs coming up in the future. Got some fun stuff, got some competitive stuff, so keep your eyes out for those. And let us know in the description if there's any set you'd like us to cover in the future. But with that, I don't think there's anything else to say. With Pittsburgh White Schwartz signing off.